What's up, everyone? How's it going? Put that back quick. Got quite the show planned today. Great show for y'all. Put it together myself. Using the power of Marxism and the internet. Yeah. If I seem tired today, I am about 6 days out from wrestling in the U.S. Open, which is a tournament to qualify for the World Team Trials, which is basically like the Olympics in between the Olympics. Like, you know, they have the Olympics every 4 years, so they have the World Championships in the years in between. So that's what's going on. And so I've been in a calorie deficit for a week. So my energy levels seem less than normal. That's why, but still got a great show planned for y'all. Plus I can power through it. Final Fantasy Scientist. Love the title, Eddie. Whoops. I think that's a leftover from the gaming stream. I think I meant to change that. All right. Well, I'm going to play our intro then. Our intro video while I change that. And I'll see y'all after that. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. My name is now Eddie Liger, geopolitical analyst. I am no longer a Final Fantasy scientist. I'm a man who wears many hats, many different jobs over here at Midwestern Marks. If you're interested in seeing my Final Fantasy science research, you can go to the Eddie Liger Smith Gaming YouTube channel, or you can follow us on twitch.tv/MidwesternMarks. I'll probably stream some Final Fantasy later today because I'm cutting weight and I'm tired and I don't have anything else to do because I smashed all my homework yesterday like a boss, and I'm going to be trying to play some Final Fantasy. So there you go. That's just how it is. So what's up? Are there any big news stories that the chat wants to talk about today? If not, I have a whole bunch of stuff planned. Not necessarily news stories. I mean, we are going to talk about the Pentagon leaks for sure. 21-year-old leaked some Pentagon papers to his Discord chat to impress his friends, apparently, says the U.S. media. Now they're prosecuting the kid under the Espionage Act, which is terrible. And that's the first thing I want to mention anytime I talk about this story, because even though it's a 21-year-old kid who may or may not have released these, to impress his buddies in a Discord chat, it's still terrible that he's being prosecuted under the Espionage Act, and he can't even bring forward the claim that, I released these in the interest of the public good, because that's what the Espionage Act does, and that's why it's unprecedented for journalists to be prosecuted under it, like they're trying to do to Julian Assange as well. But those papers revealed, among other things, that the Ukrainian death toll was much, much higher than what the U.S. had been saying. The U.S. had been saying around 10,000 to maybe 17,000 deaths or casualties, and the numbers in the hundreds of thousands. And it's astronomically high when you include both sides, injuries on both sides and deaths on both sides. So much higher than what they were saying. And we know that there were U.S. special forces as well as other NATO member countries, special forces active in Ukraine, supporting the Ukrainian military. Both of these things, the higher death tolls and the U.S. special forces being in Ukraine, were things that we predicted, things that we, had been saying all along, and these leaks just confirmed it. I even made a TikTok saying I think the death toll is much higher. I never said that I thought there were U.S. special forces in Ukraine, because I had a feeling that TikTok would take that down and call it a conspiracy theory. But I had predicted the death toll thing. So it's obvious, though, to people following basic facts, right? To people following any independent journalists who are on the ground in Ukraine, the U.S. has almost none. And the ones they do have are in Kiev, just reading whatever Ukrainian intelligence wants them or what the U.S. State Department wants them to say. And if you're following, like I said, Scott Ritter, Wyatt Reed, Dan Kovalik, Ava Bartlett, I can't think of her middle name. If you're following them, these actual journalists and actual academics looking at the situation, and there are many, many more. You already knew this, but it'll come as a surprise. It'll come as a shock to anyone who just reads Washington Post or watches CNN or whatever. And CNN is saying anybody who supports the leaks and anybody who doesn't want the leaker to be prosecuted under the Espionage Act is a MAGA Republican. So congrats to everyone in the chat. We thought we were Marxist-Leninists. We thought we were fighting for the working class against the ruling class. We thought that we supported making Fox News public, nationalizing Fox News. But in fact, we are Fox News. We are all MAGA Republicans. So high fives all around, everyone. What's up, Les Cassowaries? I've been watching your TikToks recently. I found you on TikTok. I was thinking this today. I'm like, I really like it that I can actually picture their face now. Like, I feel like I have legitimate relationships with so many people in the Twitch chat because we talk every other day. And you guys tell me what you're reading and what you're doing and stuff. But I don't know what a lot of you look like. I haven't seen a lot of your faces. So, follow Les Cassowaries. I'm probably pronouncing that username wrong, but follow them on TikTok. If Eddie's a Final Fantasy scientist and I'm a Destiny Moon technician, I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool. If I was a Final Fantasy scientist, though, my name would be Sid, spelled C-I-D. Shooting of a kid in Kansas. He went to the wrong house to pick up his siblings. I just saw that. Someone in my personal life just posted that. Someone I know through wrestling. Terrible situation. Yeah. What's happening in Fort Lauderdale right now? I don't know. I do not know. Oh, I support arson in that case. Guy shot kid in the head through his door, then shot him again while he was laying on his porch and never called the police. Dude, what the hell? What the hell? I didn't see the details of the case. What the hell? That's so sick. Good morning. Howdy, homies. Did you hear of the bunker buster that killed a bunch of NATO generals? I did not. I did not see that. There's too much news out of Ukraine every freaking day. You can't keep up with it all. What's up, Sam Dixon? How are you? Home recovering from an operation. Great way to spend the day at home. Hello, everyone. Wow, I'm glad that we can give you some entertainment while you're recovering from your operation. Sorry you had to have an operation. I hope everything went well. I hope you're safe and healthy. America has lost its marbles. Absolutely, and I just made a TikTok about this, but you know who's lost their marbles even more than America? To the point where it's going to make us have to evolve our it's going to force dialectical materialism to evolve as a method of analysis. As I was listening to Michael Hudson on Danny Haifong's show yesterday, is the West European countries. These NATO countries like Germany, who are sacrificing their steel industry and their glass blowing industry and huge sectors of their economy for the U.S., because the U.S. is asking them to sanction Russia, stop buying gas from Russia, stop buying any energy from Russia, even though, geographically, just think about it. Russia's right there. It makes perfect sense for them to be buying, cheaper energy from Russia, which is why they were doing it. And now they're just going along with U.S. sanctions and refusing to buy energy and allowing their own industries to go under. It's like economic suicide unless they reverse it quickly. So then we have to ask the question as dialectical materialists, why are these countries going against their own material interests? Why are they going against their own economic interests? Is this some kind of dialectical inversion of countries' interests that has happened because of capital concentration? Are these countries just controlled by the military-industrial complex even more so than finance capital? Because you would think the finance capitalists would say, no, we're not going to sacrifice our own steel industry, right? We're not going to start sacrificing industries that make money for the finance capitalists here and the shareholders here. But that's exactly what they're doing, just to go along with the U.S.'s war, or war for Western unipolarity. And it's almost like they're putting their political interests above their economic interests, which is very rare. But I mean, there are economic interests that benefit, but it's really just the military-industrial complex, right? And this is something I've talked about when I'm reading Lenin's Imperialism with my book breakdowns of Lenin's Imperialism, which I'm redoing now. I have a full guide. Now I'm redoing the guide. Is the military-industrial complex comes about after Lenin, right? So capitalism's already in its imperialist stage. And then the military-industrial complex comes out where you have this complex of companies, including weapons manufacturers, who are literally profiting off war. The more war, the more money. And, in countries that are financial oligarchies like the U.S. that are almost entirely deindustrialized, those are some of the most powerful companies, some of the most lucrative industries outside of like the healthcare industry, the housing industry, and a few others like Silicon Valley. So have those military-industrial complex capitalists and weapons manufacturers monopolized and concentrated, and do they control the government more so than finance capital at this point? And do they control the European governments more than finance capital at this point? They're interesting questions to ask, especially for me as, someone whose focus is geopolitics. It's exciting to actually have to question, to actually have to think about these things. Because for so long, it's been kind of obvious what's going on. Where the U.S. is this unipolar power just stopping any country from developing economically or moving towards socialism and trying to super exploit all these countries. But now with the move to multipolarity, it's interesting watching the capitalist nations try to cling on to power and even act against their own material economic interests, which is rare. I mean, not really even it's not supposed to happen, I want to say, but I shouldn't say that, because dialectical materialism observes reality, observes the material world, and draws conclusions from that. We don't jump to conclusions and say, countries aren't acting in their own economic interests. Diamat must be wrong. Evening, y'all. Thank you, Ross. Ross, one of the most consistent senders of euros, probably the most consistent euro donator to Midwestern Marks. Thank you. There you go. I just gave you a rant about West European countries because you're always sending us European currency. Thanks, Ross. Appreciate you. I think Gromsky might have something to say about this too, about your earlier point with European countries being stupid by agreeing not to buy Russian gas. I'm not that well read on Gromsky, so I can tell you though, yeah, you might be right with the maintenance of hegemony, right? We're maybe maintaining political and legal and media hegemony has become more important to Western finance capitalists and the Western ruling class than even just expanding industry and developing industry, or even protecting their core economic interests. It's wild. Bricks will put it to the test. The de-dollarization is already playing a massive role. Definitely. It's crazy how fast it's happening, isn't it? Like I was saying, it as someone who's analyzed geopolitics, things have been relatively the same for a while. Right, with the U.S. as the unipolar power, and now like people have been talking about the collapse of the dollar forever, but now it's happening, and all of a sudden everything's going crazy. You're seeing all these qualitative shifts with countries moving away from the U.S. and towards China and Russia, in Venezuela, and this whole alliance, including Saudi Arabia. Like Saudi Arabia is brokering a deal with Yemen now. I should have made a full follow-up video on this because we covered that. That de-dollarization was happening and that China had brokered peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And I said Yemen better be next, right? They better try and broker a peace deal with Yemen because Yemenis have had their water sanitation facilities bombed for the last 7 years, with bombs paid for by U.S. tax dollars created by the U.S. weapons manufacturers. And like 1/25 of the country of Yemen had cholera at one point, which is a disease where you have diarrhea and you poop so much that you get dehydrated and you die. So just terrible bombing of the Yemeni infrastructure. And then China brokered a deal. China did. They brokered a peace deal, just like I was hopefully predicting would happen. So it's like all these things that have, and that's something that like Joe Biden promised to bring an end to and then didn't. Right. And when you're lied to like that, and then you see the destruction and the death and the imperialism continue, it creates a sense of hopelessness, right? And doomerism. But this should show us how fast things can change, dude. Like things can change so fast. It's like, oh, Biden lied. He's not going to do it. But there is a people's government out there. There is China, and they were able to do it. Right. And they were able to create this qualitative shift in the economy where Saudi Arabia no longer feels attached to the U.S. Like they need to listen to the U.S. Like they're a colonial overlord. 85% of the world at this point is not willing to just do what they want or do what the U.S. wants because the U.S. was their former occupier. Hey, comrade, quick question. Would you be okay if a party leader was a landlord? How much class collaboration should we tolerate? Interesting question. Personally, I think it should be democratic, right? It should be democratically decided. But, personally, I don't ever see myself voting for someone whose class position is as a landlord, right? Because when it comes down to, say, we're going to come after the utility companies, or we're going to organize a tenants union or a renter strike where people are going to stop paying rent, I don't trust that landlord will put the interests of the masses and the working class in the party above his own material interests because of his position within the economy, because he owns the means of production. I think he'll, there would be too much of a risk that they would side with their own class interests. That being said, I think that they could potentially be in a party and they could be helpful because they own that property, right? And that property can be used. And I'll give you an example. My parents were in a lot of debt and they realized that they're going to not be able to retire unless they do something drastic. So they've started like refurbishing houses, and they have 2 Airbnbs now. They are technically landlords, but they rent to my siblings. And then they do this Airbnb thing where they try and fix up houses, and there's problems with it, right? And they know that I don't want to be a part of it because I don't want to be in the class position of a landlord or even close, right? But I don't fault them for it. I don't fault them for fixing up houses, putting hours and hours and hours of their own labor into this after work, when they're both working themselves to the bone at their regular jobs so that they can retire someday, doing the Airbnb thing. So if they wanted to join the Communist Party, I would think that it should accept them. And I told them, I'm like, because they felt a little bit bad about it because they know I'm against it, and we've had a lot of conversations about it. I'm like, I can do organizing events out of your guys' house, right? Like we can do diaper and food giveaways out of these Airbnbs because a couple of them are in like more low income neighborhoods. Like we can do mutual aid events. We can do stuff with this to further the end of capitalism. So, and Ingalls was a member of the Communist Party, and his dad was a factory owner. Like there's class collaboration there. But as far as leadership, as far as a decision maker who, we're granting more power than other people within the party, even even my own parents, I wouldn't vote for him because of the fact that they own Airbnbs. It's because it's so easy to side with whatever's in your own material interest under capitalism. So if it comes down to it. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Vladimir Lenin, baby. Death to doomerism. Facts. Absolutely. That's what I've been trying to tell people. Like, the Russian Revolution, 10 years before it happened, they thought they were playing the long game, right? They thought we're organizing for a revolution decades and decades and decades in the future, right? We don't know how volatile things are going to get. We don't know what the collapse of the empire is going to look like, how bad inflation and, economic downturns are going to get, and how restless the people are going to get, right? And there's already a huge growth of socialism. And I was thinking the other day too, like, socialism is so popular amongst younger people right now, more popular than capitalism, seen more favorably than capitalism. And it's morbid to think about, and right, we still want to reach out to old people and convince old people to socialism and bring, things like Medicare and dental care and memory care to old people, which right now people in the US with Alzheimer's and dementia have to pay exorbitant amounts to get memory care. So it bankrupts them. But despite the fact that we want to serve old people, these people indoctrinated by the Red Scare who are set in their anti-communist ways and are never, ever, ever going to change, they are going to eventually pass away, and while there's a lot of opportunism in our generation, there's a lot of pseudo-Marxists who think they understand Marxism but actually don't. There's a lot of, right-wing tendencies in our generation too. Socialism is becoming more and more popular amongst younger people, and those are the people who are going to inherit the future. So no need to be doomerist at all. Doomerism doesn't even make sense to me anymore. Even movies like Mad Max, in order for the apocalypse to be real, you have to accept that the world is broken. For sure. And when have humans ever shown that we can't work together, that we can't cooperate and make it through just about anything? Right? If there's one thing humanity has shown, it's that our will to survive is extremely strong, and our will to progress and conquer our environment is extremely strong. That's what. Has anybody seen the anime Hunter x Hunter or Hunter x Hunter? That's kind of what that's about. There's like a race of ants that tries to take out humanity, and they nuke the ants. Spoilers, sorry. Communism. Opportunism and nihilism are issues that need this generation's attention. Absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm doing with I do Patreon exclusive fitness videos, obviously, which patreon.com/MidwesternMarks if you want to learn how to lift and what supplements to take, or if you just want to see a bunch of videos and pictures of me shirtless, but which is another reason I do the self-defense videos. But I've been talking a lot about like personal health and welfare recently, because I think that helps combat doomerism and nihilism. Right? Nihilism's a little different, but doomerism is taking care of your own health, making sure you're eating nutritious foods, and there are supplements that you can take for your brain, for your cognitive performance. The number one thing is getting enough sleep. And I'm not just talking about this stuff because I'm a wrestler and I'm, getting ready for a competition right now and it's on my mind. I mean, that's part of it. But beyond it just being my personal interest, I think it's useful. I think it's helpful. I think there's a reason that Mao Zedong wrote on physical education, or a study on physical education, and talked about the connection, the dialectical connection between the body and the mind. Civilize the mind and make savage the body is like the most famous quote from that. Because control of the mind follows from control of the body. And, if you're eating non-nutritious food, unhealthy food, and not exercising and stuff, your body can deteriorate and you can experience health issues, and they can affect your mind. So that in turn affects our organizing, right? Our revolutionary struggle. This isn't to shame anybody or say that, you got to get to a certain body fat to be a communist or something like I was getting accused of. I just think that taking care of your health is good, and it'll make you happier, and it'll make us a better collective organism overall. Hey, comrades, caught a live stream. Let's prepare for a revolutionary moment. Get those mutual aid networks into place. Exactly, Insomniac. I love it. You got high energy today. Insomniac got their sleep. That means they're unstoppable. Sleep and exercise are critical for health, says me, a doctor. Oh, wow, I got a doctor watching my show. This is a big moment for me. I feel special right now. Absolutely critical for health. You don't have to, and like I'm pushing myself every day to the point, like pushing myself and going into a calorie deficit to the point where it's unhealthy, right? And I do those funny videos without a shirt where I'm reading Lenin and Marx or whatever. But that's just to draw views. Like, you don't have to be shredded. Being shredded is actually like kind of unhealthy. Just got to take care of yourself. Hey, Eddie, sorry I was late to the stream. No worries. Can you talk about Western historians' translations of Marxist text? Could you react to this on stream? Yeah, definitely. Let me grab that for later. I should probably hop into some of the stream plans that I had, or some of the stream react ideas that I had laid out for today. I always get too into ideas that I'm hanging out and talking to everyone in the chat. That's one of my favorite parts of streaming. Oh, Jacob, it says video currently unavailable. So it looks like that video got taken down, or it got temporarily taken down, and you need to appeal it, or whoever posted it needs to appeal it. That theme song slaps. Our theme song? Thank you. You love wrestling? I love swimming. Dope. Swimming's cool. I had a lot of friends in high school who were swimmers, and in college. So something that happened at Midwestern Marx recently that's worth noting is we got swarmed on Twitter by NATO bots or NATO stooges. I'm sure a few of them were NATO stooges because they were like blue checkmark liberals. But a lot of them were bots. Absolutely. There's just no denying it. It was obvious.
I want to understand the war.
This is the video that got swarmed. There are literally thousands of replies to this.
If you want to understand the war in Ukraine, put yourself in the shoes of somebody living in the Donbass region. This is a place in eastern Ukraine containing cities like Donetsk and Lugansk, where most of the civilians are ethnic Russians who speak the Russian language. And in 2010, they voted for Viktor Yanukovych as president because he promised to bring peace between Russians and Ukrainians. But in the lead up to 2014, the US funneled millions of dollars into Ukraine in order to foment a coup and overthrow that government. And at this point, literal far-right extremist ethno-nationalist groups like the Azov Battalion started getting added to the actual Ukrainian military. And they started waging war against the ethnic Russians, including firing artillery shells at their homes. In all, 14,000 people were killed before Russia even got involved. That is the humanitarian crisis that the US created in Ukraine, and that's why Russia eventually invaded. The Donbass actually requested Russia to invade 10 times before they did. War is terrible, but remember, NATO started this war. If you want to understand the war...
So not saying anything that should even be controversial, nothing that's controversial to y'all. You know that's all true. But putting yourself in the shoes of the people in the Donbass really gets to the heart of this question, I've realized, the heart of the conflict in Ukraine. Because people say, you know, you can be against NATO, but you should also be against Russia too. It's like, okay, you know, you can be against the intervention, but let's know what the intervention actually was. It's an intervention that the Donbass regions requested 10 times before it happened. And if Russia didn't do that, then what should have been done, right? What are they going to do to protect the Donbass and these people having their homes blown up? So there are people claiming that the bombing of the Donbass was not real, that it's a myth, right? These same people who call us genocide deniers are telling us that the bombing of the Donbass isn't real, that the war of the Donbass isn't real, even though it's like, it has a Wikipedia page, for God's sake. Like, who denies that the war in the Donbass was real? Just these absurd claims from these NATO bots. And what's interesting is I noticed now this tweet has 674 likes. Before it had like 100, right? So before these NATO bots swarmed us, this video wasn't that viral, and now it's starting to pick up traction because of the NATO bots that attacked it. And shoot, I lost it, but there were hundreds of quote tweets and thousands, literally 1,900, I think was the number of replies just from bots and, like I said, a couple blue check marks. And then this one, I wish I could see it. I was hoping it would show me how many replies there are. But this one also had like 700 people telling, and you see it's all just a bunch of Ukraine flag people posting memes. Which is absurd. If one of them would post a real argument, I would be stunned, or I would be happy, right? There's never any information. It's always memes and go NATO, you support Putin, Putler. So that was interesting that happened. And that happened right after we had a video go viral responding to Philip DeFranco about Ukraine, which, if you've been, especially if you're someone who follows us on TikTok, but if you follow us in general,
Even
you
more
know that I've been trying
earth-shattering
to do that
revelations from these.
forever. I've been trying to, you know, show people on TikTok that Philip DeFranco is a fraud. He's a neoliberal. If he's not getting paid by some State Department connected NGOs, I would be shocked. He literally just reads the narrative of the State Department verbatim on TikTok and gets hundreds of thousands of views. And when I was making a lot of response videos breaking down his analysis of Ukraine and explaining why it was flawed and wrong, and, you know, giving the facts that he was purposefully omitting, our account got banned, right? And at this time, Philip DeFranco was putting in his comments that anybody criticizing him or going against his narrative was a Putin bot, a Russia bot. So basically encouraging the app to ban us, or people to report us for being bots or liars or Putin propagandists spreading misinformation. So the fact that I finally had a video responding to Philip DeFranco blow up is crazy to me and really cool. And this video got taken down originally, of course. Within like 2 minutes of me putting it up, it got removed, and then I appealed it and they put it back up, and they couldn't stop it. I guess they didn't put the shadow ban on it or whatever. So yeah, here's that video.
Even more earth-shattering revelations from these leaked documents. Western special forces are operating inside of Ukraine.
I'm shocked. U.S. special forces are helping to lead the U.S. proxy war against Russia. Who could have guessed, except for me a month ago when I said this to Philip DeFranco and got banned for it. But either way, the most important thing about this is that the 21-year-old who leaked these documents is being prosecuted under the Espionage Act. Okay, this has been unprecedented in the past, but they're trying to do it with Julian Assange, which means they could do it with any whistleblowers or journalists. And what the Espionage Act does is it makes it so this kid or Assange can't bring forward a public defense trial. They can't say that I leaked this information about government lies and government crimes because the public has a right to see it. The Espionage Act says, no, you can't do anything that makes the military look bad, and we're going to throw you in jail. It is literally political persecution of journalists, authoritarianism, dictatorship, everything the U.S. accuses other countries of being. They're throwing people in jail for exposing empire.
So yeah, that went legitimately viral or semi-viral, 60,000 likes and about 500,000 views. So people are figuring it out. People are seeing the truth. They can't hide it anymore. They can't suppress it anymore. They banned 7 of our accounts for saying stuff like that, right? For telling the truth about Ukraine. TikTok deleted 30,000 accounts that they said were Russian bots, which included ours. But obviously, I'm not a bot. I'm right here. I'm human, I swear. And even still, we just kept coming back, keep coming back like a thorn in their side and having our videos about Ukraine blow up because people will get to the truth no matter what. You know, you can't suppress it forever. And now the cracks in the narrative are showing. And, you know, not like the war is terrible. And I'd rather be wrong about it than right, I guess. Like when I predicted that there were more Ukrainian deaths than what was being reported, I wish I was wrong about that. But, you know, now, like people are seeing, because so many people on TikTok have accused me of being a Russian propagandist and a Russian plant, and my videos responding to those people get removed because our 7 accounts have been banned. So if you search my name on TikTok, all you get is a bunch of people attacking me. But now that we have the Pentagon leaks and stuff, you can no longer really deny what I'm saying. What I'm saying is becoming mainstream information that you can Google. Right? They can't suppress all this stuff anymore. They're trying to jail anybody who leaks this information, but and eventually the truth is going to come out and people are going to see it. And I'm going to do a bunch of victory laps on TikTok, but like, I don't know. That's kind of morbid too, like to do victory laps. I feel like that's kind of individualistic and selfish for me to say. And like all this stuff was obvious. All this stuff that I was predicting, right? I'm like, oh, I predicted that this happened. I didn't really predict it. I was listening to independent journalists and military analysts who actually know what the hell is going on, who are actually following the situation outside of the just blatant, absurd lies told by CNN. So I'm like, you know, there's more Ukrainians dying than the U.S. media is telling you. And everyone's like, you liar, you conspiracy theorist, you Putin propagandist. And then Pentagon documents leak and I'm right. Then, you know, I can say, oh, look, I predicted this, but I didn't even really predict it. I just stated a fact. Everybody or a bunch of blue check liberals told me that fact was wrong when it was actually right. So then when it's proven that the fact was right, I can be like, ooh, I predict these things. I'm like Conor McGregor. One day, Conor likes to say, I predict these things. I'm going to knock him out in round 1. And then he'll do it. And he'll say, I predict these things. My Irish accent's terrible. One day we may live in a nation where leakers will not be judged by the content of their character, but by the content of their leaks. Yes, solidarity with the 21-year-old who leaked this information to his Discord because his friend called him a cuck. Solidarity with that kid. I don't care, you know, why he released it. It was in the public interest to know that there are troops in Ukraine, that our tax dollars are being used to further this war, that there are more Ukrainians dying than what they're telling us, right? I don't care that the kid leaked it in a Discord server to impress his teenage buddies or whatever, his other 20-year-old buddies. They're persecuting him under the Espionage Act, which is a huge, horrific violation of freedom. Absolutely authoritarian, dictatorial, everything the U.S. accuses other countries of being, like we said. They're going to do round-the-clock coverage of the journalist who's locked up in Russia right now, but they won't talk about Assange. They won't talk about this 21-year-old who they're going to try and lock away for life for showing that they were committing crimes, that the Pentagon was committing crimes and lying about their crimes. If you expose that, you get locked up. So solidarity with that kid. Do not give a crap why he did it. Good for him. Ooh, good question, Pedamio. Does anybody know where you can find the independent leaks at? I was looking for them today, and I also would like to read them if anyone knows where to find them. The harder they come down on that kid, the more inspiration others will get to do the same. True, they might spark a military mutiny, dude, which is why it is practically necessary for us as socialists, collectively to reach American troops and American veterans and members of the American military who are disaffected, who don't want to be in the military, who don't like it anymore, who would rather be out of it, or who have realized by being in it that it's screwed up and that they're an armed body of the state that serves the interests of capital, and they want to get out or they want to mutiny. Like, look at how many times the military has turned on governments, right? You have like military dictatorships taking power, like in Myanmar, but like Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, it was a people's uprising, but his section of the military was absolutely necessary in they tried to do a coup. They tried to take power in 1992. It didn't work, but then, he gained a lot of popularity and won election in 98. But the whole thing would have been impossible without that section of the military. The Russian Revolution would have been impossible. Russia was an imperialist nation, similar to ours, sending their people to fight and die in wars for capital expansion while their people starved and went without health care and went without education at home, under this czarist dictatorship that would murder and execute anybody who went against them, like our government's trying to do to Assange and this 21-year-old. And the military said, we don't want to fight in these wars like World War I. And a lot of them sided with the Bolsheviks. A lot of them didn't too, but that is possible in the U.S. If you don't think that's possible in the U.S., I don't think that you've talked to that many of the troops. There are so many troops, especially those deployed to places like Afghanistan and Iraq. And I shouldn't even laugh about this because it's terrible. Who their time in Afghanistan and Iraq turned them into anti-imperialists or even socialists. There are a lot of Mike Preisners out there. Last thing I wanted to say about the Twitter debacle and having thousands of people jump down our throats on Twitter is this recent article. 60 to 80% of Twitter accounts posting on the Russia-Ukraine war are bots. 90% of them are pro-Ukraine bots. So this comes as no surprise to any anti-imperialists who use the app twitter.com. We already knew this, but this study is incredible. I didn't know that it was to this degree. Like, these numbers are insane. And I've heard people say this on podcasts, like normies say this, like on the Joe Rogan podcast. No, on Jimmy Dore. It was Kurt Metzger on Jimmy Dore. He was like, I don't think, a lot of these accounts are real. I don't talk to a lot of people in real life who have these opinions, like you rah NATO. You rah war with Ukraine, more weapons, more weapons, more weapons. Yet there are thousands of Twitter accounts pushing this idea. And that's because 60 to 80% of Twitter accounts posting about the issue at all are just bots created or programmed to say the same thing or push an agenda, 90% of them being pro-Ukrainian. And this is what people are trying, they've inverted reality too. The claim is that, Russia's infiltrating the US with bots. Russia has all this propaganda. Russia's the propaganda masterminds. They're using bots to influence the US. No, 90% of the bots are pro-Ukrainian. So Russia is losing the information war. If, the Russian state, or if there are people in Russia or aspects of the Russian military that are making bots for propaganda, they're not doing very good at it. They're getting crushed by the NATO bots. And the people who are criticizing NATO are just the people who are in touch with reality. The anti-imperialists, the socialists, the Marxists, the Leninists, the commies. The one thing that really, I guess not got to me, but that I thought was crazy about the replies to us is the people saying that the war in the Donbass is a myth, or that the bombing of civilian homes in the Donbass is a myth. Because we get called genocide deniers all the time. Anti-imperialists and Marxists get called genocide deniers for supporting socialist countries. And then here you have these pro-NATO stooges saying that the bombing of civilian homes in the Donbass by ethno-nationalists, by crazy anti-Russian extremists who are bombing them because they're Russian, that never happened. They're denying that happened at all. That is genocide denial. Right? You're denying that literal Nazis or neo-Nazis, followers of Stefan Bandera, who made it illegal to speak Russian and then started bombing the area where there's a bunch of Russian speakers and ethnic Russians. You're denying that that happened. That's way closer to genocide denial than anything I have ever said, because I refuse to accept the Western media lies about Xinjiang, China, or the Holodomor, when there's, mountains of evidence that these aren't genocides. That's genocide denial, but not denying that Russians are being killed in the Donbass by ethno-nationalists in Ukraine. And there's also mountains of evidence for that, such as this. This is an interview from Consortium News. If people don't know, Consortium News is one of those outlets I read every single day, founded by the late, great Robert Perry, who's in the movie Ukraine on Fire, did a lot of great reporting on Ukraine before he passed away in 2018. And they did an interview, or CNN Live did an interview that Consortium News republished, at least, with Randy Credico, who's a comedian and radio host, activist who visited the Donbass. And this is what I've been trying to say. Like, don't tell me the bombing of the Donbass is a lie. I'm friends on Facebook with Wyatt Reed and Dan Kovalik. Dan Kovalik is an author and academic professor. Wyatt Reed is an independent journalist. They were in the Donbass. They were in the Donbass talking to the people, interviewing them. I'm not friends on Facebook with Ava Bartlett, but she posts this stuff on YouTube too, showing monuments that have been erected to the people killed by the Ukrainian NATO-backed ethno-nationalists in the Donbass. You think this is all fake? You think this is all staged? This is all staged by Putin? Putin controlled Wyatt Reed and Dan Kovalik so they could post this stuff on their Facebook feeds and, convince their 200 friends to support Russia. Like, it's to deny that this is going on, you have to be freaking insane. So this will kind of show that too. Oh, it's a live stream in 6 hours. Never mind. Okay, well, I guess we'll watch it in 6 hours. I thought it was a video that we're going to react to, but either way, here's some pictures of Randy Credico in the Donbass with the homes that have been destroyed. Yep. This is a myth, though. This was all created by Putin. Even Randy Credico himself was created by Putin, right? Putin can now create human beings just to lie for him. So what a guy, When will NATO finally stop his aggression and his lies? So Joe Loria published a good piece too. This is the last thing I'll say about this for Consortium News. Leaks spelling the end for Ukraine, basically saying what I was just saying. Like, will people even be able to lie anymore after this? Will these NATO bots and stooges and goons be able to say that, it's not a NATO proxy war when there are NATO special forces in Ukraine, or that they're using, or will people be able to deny that they're using Ukrainians as cannon fodder now that we know the actual death tolls? It's going to be a lot harder, and the journalists and academics who have been telling the truth about this for a while and being called genocide deniers are going to be vindicated now. And there are a couple good lines from that piece. I'd recommend reading the whole thing at some point, but so the Washington Post said, as if it's a bad thing, that the leaks will likely embolden critics who feel that the United States and NATO should do more to push for a negotiated settlement to this conflict. So it's going to also push more people to actually look for peace rather than hanging Ukraine flags in their yard and thinking that that's the right thing to do. That's the peaceful position. So they said, Joe Loria went on to say that's already begun to happen. Writing in the Uber establishment Foreign Affairs, a former State Department official, Richard Haas, and Charles Kupchan, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, wrote that it is difficult to feel sanguine about where the war is headed. So even the think tanks in Washington, the mouthpieces of the military-industrial complex and NATO are like, I don't feel so good about this anymore. Right now that we know that the media has been lying nonstop about the number of Ukrainians that are killed so that people will continue to support the war, continue to support sending the Ukrainians weapons when there's no hope of them winning. And all that we're doing is trying to weaken Russia by prolonging the war and literally bringing Ukraine to like absolute destruction. Like at first, Russia wasn't hitting industrial targets or and they were trying to avoid any civilian areas with their artillery. But after the war was prolonged and NATO sent more and more weapons, they're like, all right, we're going to start blasting your industry. And now the whole country of Ukraine is freaking damaged, terribly damaged. And this is a product of NATO meddling, NATO aggression. NATO will only be stopped when the workers of the world stand up. Damn right. NATO is nothing but the political form of imperialism. It's the capitalist imperialist countries merged together into a military alliance, political military alliance that they use to enforce their economic dominance all over the world. Right? And we know because of Marxism and the not just Marx, but the analysis of Marx and Marxists, that capitalism is, or imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. Now, without attacking capitalism, we're never going to abolish imperialism. And the only way to attack capitalism is for the workers within capitalism to rise up against the capitalist ruling class, overthrow it, and move to a new system. That's the only way to defeat NATO. And without, hey, I'm back. I think I can see myself. CIA, my internet died, not y'all's. It's been happening a lot lately where my internet's been going out, just in general. Everybody panic? No. Shoot. Good now? Okay, good. I was just going to shout out the Patreon too, because we had 140 people in there. So I was going to say, check out patreon.com/MidwesternMarx if you want to support our project. This week, we're going to be releasing Carlos's Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism for $10 Patreon supporters. We've also got the Journal of American Socialist Studies 1 and 2 in there. So you get an ebook of that. It's like a $30 value or $25 value for $10. So plus you get a bunch of videos of me teaching you how to work out, teaching you how to lift, how to run, how to take supplements, how to eat. Actually, there's no nutrition videos in there yet, but I've only recently gotten my nutrition under control. I have a sweet tooth. Definitely was the CIA. They don't want you to promote that infantile crap, probably. I kind of like, I watched this CNN video about the Pentagon leaks, and it was so disgusting. Like I had to just turn it off, and I forgot to copy the link so we could react to it on stream. Because it was so terrible that I was just like, get this off my screen right now, but I can find it in my search history here. This is the most damaging revelation in the Pentagon leaks. Listen to this scumbag, Jake Tapper. Listen to these corporate media goons. They have to know they're lying at this point. Actually, no, that's not true. Because these people like Jake Tapper are probably just reading off of a teleprompter, right? They probably don't even read the news. They're literally just fed what they repeat on air. But whoever is writing what Jake Tapper is saying is a terrible, terrible liar. Because you know there are people at CNN, people who work at CNN, who probably actually read the Pentagon leaks. And then despite that, and despite everything that was revealed, this is their coverage.
21-year-old Airman Jack Teixeira had his initial court appearance in Boston earlier today. He faces 2 charges, including a violation of the Espionage Act after he allegedly leaked troves of U.S. secrets, and apparently to impress his friends online. Let's get right to CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller. John, how did the Massachusetts National Guard have access to this wealth of top secret information?
It's because of the mission. That 102nd Intelligence Wing is basically the base where they fly drones from that are doing intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, supporting warfighters, special operators in places overseas, targeting terrorists. So almost everything they do in those rooms is classified. If you're working there, you have a secret clearance or a top secret clearance.
And you also have new information on how this case came together and how they ultimately identified Jack Teixeira, law enforcement.
So the big break came Sunday going into Monday.
So what they're talking about, what they're bragging about is how they found this kid, how they found the 21-year-old, which the Washington Post basically snitched on him. And the corporate media establishment is like, oh, how wonderful, how great, what wonderful journalism. They handed a whistleblower over to the U.S. government. Oh, the government watchdogs over at CNN. Why does Jake Tapper always look like the frowny emoji? That is the most unnatural frowny from. He looks like a cartoon.
The FBI goes to the home of an 18-year-old kid in California, and he doesn't want to talk. They talk to the kid's mother. They get a lawyer. They sit down together. And this kid, we'll call him Sam, not his name, agrees to sit down, and he says, I know Jack. We've done a video chat together. He explained to me that he was getting nervous about copying classified documents over at work so he could post them. So essentially, he just started bringing the documents home. That leads to yesterday when the FBI comes back after getting the billing address for the server and the address that matches Jack Teixeira's, and they say in a photo array of 5 people, which one of these is the person you know is Jack? He picks out Teixeira. That gave them probable cause to make that arrest, which was coming at a time when others, including the press, were closing in.
All right, fascinating stuff. John Miller, thanks so much. Joining us now to discuss the former Defense Secretary under President Trump, Mark Esper. Secretary Esper, I want to get your thoughts on how Russia is framing this leak and Jack Teixeira on state-run television. They played a clip from Fox in which he played a clip, the host, from.
Here's where it gets really bad. That one was bad. They're just basically bragging about how corporate media snitched on this whistleblower and explaining that how it happened. But here's where it gets disgusting.
CNN, take a listen.
Are they going to turn him into a mini Trump? During his show on Fox News, Tucker Carlson is showing and quoting CNN reporting. He busts out into a big speech about what happened. He says mainstream media is turning Teixeira into the worst traitor. For what? Carlson says it's because the guy told the truth about what is happening in Ukraine, where they are sending money. It's difficult not to agree with colleague Tucker Carlson.
So
CNN's salty, of course, that Russian state media is making fun of them, even though they spend all day, every day lying about Russia and lying to the American people about what's going on in order to get them to support war and the destabilization of the Russian state, which we all know would lead to nuclear warfare. So CNN's salty about getting criticized about over that. And you see that, like, it's another example of Tucker Carlson being the biggest anti-imperialist in cable media. And while Bernie Sanders and AOC and the social democratic left continues to cheer on the proxy war, there are these MAGA people and figures on the right criticizing the war and criticizing the constant push to fight to the last Ukrainian and all the weapon sales to Ukraine while our infrastructure is crumbling at home and people are dying due to lack of health care. You hear that coming from the right more than the left. And although I've heard a lot of people say that, right, that there's no anti-war movement on the left. There's no anti-war calls from the left. That's not true. From the Marxist, communist, socialist left, there are. And for a while, that's a left that's been largely irrelevant in the U.S., right? So people associate the left with liberals and social democrats. But we are growing. The Marxist-Leninist collective, or just Marxist collective or Marxist voices in general, are growing in number, especially because of events like this. And the people with the Marxist analysis calling for peace and criticizing NATO are growing in number by the day.
They approving.
So my point is that there is an anti-war voice from the left.
cited Fox saying that Teixeira was only being punished for telling the truth, and the Russians also called Teixeira a heroic leaker. What's your reaction?
Well, Jack, Jake, I couldn't see the clip that you showed, and it's hard to follow. But look, the bottom line is this young airman broke the law, apparently, and under the Espionage Act, and it's very serious because he released highly classified information that was detrimental and has caused harm to the United States of America and to our allies. And that's the bottom line. And look, he'll have his chance in court to defend himself, and he needs to be he's innocent till proven guilty. But clearly, this was a major problem, and I applaud the FBI for rolling it up quickly. Now we need to get to
the government watchdogs. I applaud the FBI for rolling it up quickly. I don't question the FBI. I don't criticize the FBI. That would actually be the work of a journalist. That would actually be the work of the media, a news outlet, or what they're supposed to do, I guess. Right? This is CNN, the corporate news network. Go FBI, lock up that whistleblower. Oh, man. And Jake Tapper would call himself a journalist. He also, someone said he looks like the fish people from SpongeBob. He really do. He really be looking like Fred out here. So
the bottom of it and find out, was there anybody else involved and how did he do it and all those things necessary to kind of plug the gaps and fix the problems. But that's how I see it.
So there's obviously a group of Republicans, conservatives, MAGA folk, who are siding with Teixeira, a top ally of Trump and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on Twitter, quote, Jake, it's Jack actually, but I guess that's a mistake that a couple people have made. Jack Teixeira is white, male, Christian, and anti-war. That makes him an enemy to the Biden regime. And Teixeira told the truth about troops being on the ground in Ukraine and a lot more. Ask yourself, who is the real enemy? A young, low-level national...
Like, you guys keep allowing yourselves to get outflanked by Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the random QAnon housewife who's in Congress for some reason. She is more anti-imperialist at this point than Bernie Sanders, than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, people who are running around calling themselves socialists. Just wild.
Guardsmen or the administration that is...
It's wild, but it's not that wild, because in times of capitalist crises, the Social Democrats always side with the imperialists. They always side with the right. But it's just crazy that there's now a space on the right for anti-imperialism when there's no space for that on the American quote-unquote left. As I said before, that's just the social democratic and liberal left. But it's wild to see. And I think it's, because people are waking up, the empire is deteriorating. But there's not enough ideological education. There's not enough Marxist education. There's not enough socialist education. So a lot of people who would be socialists, just fall into MAGAism, honestly, because of the right-wing populism, I should say. And then there are these people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump who realize it's popular to be right-wing on social issues and then kind of be anti-war or pretend to be anti-war and anti-corporate, and you can pick up a big audience. Tucker Carlson, I think, is a unique case. I think he's kind of seen a lot of the more blatant lies after being in the media establishment for so long.
Waging war in Ukraine, a non-NATO nation against nuclear Russia without war powers. Now, to be clear, the only U.S. troops that are in Ukraine are guarding the U.S. embassy. But does it concern you how quickly Republicans, and look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she might have fringe views, but she has direct access to Trump, direct access to Kevin McCarthy. They're coming to this guy's defense.
Look, this issue should not be politicized. In my view, it's a clear black and white issue with regard to the law being broken. If there are issues that some in Congress are alleging they were not.
Bruh, and all they say is the law being broken. Talk about the Espionage Act. Talk about why no whistleblowers and journalists before Assange were charged with the Espionage Act, or why they wouldn't even use that as a threat. Because you can't say, I brought this information forward, and there's Jake Tapper's frown again. I brought this information forward on behalf of the public, because the public needs to know what their government's doing. You're not allowed to use that as a defense when you're charged under the Espionage Act. So it's the most authoritarian, dictatorial thing ever. And this guy's just like, oh, he broke the law. He broke the law. Gotta lock him up forever. It's only, and then Jake Tapper, of course, is pretending like he's a real journalist, like he's providing pushback. But what he's really doing is saying, look, the only anti-war people and the only people standing up for this whistleblower are MAGA Republicans. If you're, a rational leftist like us, you support locking up whistleblowers for the rest of their lives.
Informed about, then that's the role of congressional oversight of the executive branch to call them up and find out what was going on. But look, I think the vast majority, most Republicans and Democrats would agree with what I'm saying with regard to this being a case of espionage that will go through the court process, legal process, and it will land where it lands. I think the important thing is right now is to find out the scope of the problem, what he released, did he have others working for him, and how do we close up?
Dude, why does Jake Tapper look like that? Why does he always look like he's a 5-year-old, like pouting? He's always just got the biggest frown. So yeah, disgusting coverage from CNN. Pathetic excuses for journalists they are over there. Literally just letting mouthpieces for the military come on and spread propaganda and argue that anyone who exposes government secrets should just be locked up. Even if those government secrets are like the military gunning down civilians with a helicopter, like what Assange released. Just because your tax dollars went to pay for that helicopter that they're gunning civilians down with doesn't mean you have a right to that information. Right? Just because you don't have health care because the government's taking 40% of your paycheck and sending it to Ukraine every month doesn't mean you have a right to know that there are U.S. special forces in Ukraine. Right? You get that's information that only the government can have. So you just got to F off. Otherwise, we're going to throw you in jail. Even though we're the ones funding these war efforts. It's absurd. This is our tax dollars. This is our government. This is our government that we pay for every day. And they come and lock us in jail if we tell people what the government's actually doing and what the government's lying about. It's time for the people to rise the F up. I think we just watched bootlickers bootlicking. Bootlickers bootlicking in front of, well, I was going to say millions of people, but do millions of people still watch CNN? Their ratings are pretty trash. And guess who's got the best ratings on cable news? Because they're the only person who's willing to tell even a modicum of truth ever anymore. Tucker Carlson. They've allowed Tucker Carlson to become the most popular cable media show because everyone else is so bad and everyone else is just a stooge for the empire. So that's that. We still haven't covered what we were going to, or what our main topic for today is, which is Dan Crenshaw. And do you know who exposed Dan Crenshaw? It's this guy named Eddie Gallagher. And when I saw the video, when I saw that it was from Eddie Gallagher's YouTube channel, I'm like, isn't that the guy who got accused of war crimes because he took a picture with a dead ISIS soldier, with a dead Iraqi or whatever? And it is that guy. I guess that guy got acquitted because he didn't actually kill the person who he took a photo with and sent to his friends, the dead guy he took a picture with. So he eventually was acquitted. Now he's doing YouTube videos, right? But he made a video criticizing Dan Crenshaw, the eye patch guy, Republican politician, that I think is worth watching because it shows us like kind of how the right wing works right now, or how these right wing pundits work and the divisions that are on the right. Plus, it's just interesting. So first of all, for full context, we got to watch this video of Mr. Crenshaw saying that David Goggins, the former Navy SEAL who runs ultra marathons all the time, like 100-mile races, and is incredibly inspirational. If you need like inspiration for health and fitness and stuff like that, David Goggins is a great guy to follow. He does absolutely insane things. But Dan Crenshaw said that David Goggins is not tough. The guy who does 100-mile races is not physically and mentally tough compared to Dan Crenshaw, I guess, and other Navy SEALs. So let's watch this stupidity.
Well, I need to look cool. That's the number one. Am I going to look cool on this? Is going to be, are people going to look down on me, or are people in the community not going to like it? But then once he did it, he's like, nah, I want to be the best. He's like, how do I get to 10,000 followers? How do I beat this guy or that guy, right? Right, but there is. So with books, I wonder how much of it. So like David Goggins. So I'll bring him up because he's not super well liked in the community. Although I've met him before and we've talked and stuff, and he even says he's not super well liked in the community. But you know, his book is very popular, right? Very, very popular. He doesn't talk about tactics or anything, right? But a lot of guys don't like that.
Yeah, so his book. I've never read his book, and I've never met a single.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to be typing while I had my mic on. I thought I turned it off.
SEAL who knows him, so I have no opinion. He doesn't have a very what would I call it? His SEAL career isn't very full. I guess, you know. I mean, I don't. He's not known for any particular deployments or in anything in particular. So I don't know what his book's even about. You know, he seems to be selling more of a 50-mile run ultra marathon type of mentality. To me, it has nothing to do with the SEAL teams. And so again, his messaging is his whole demeanor. It doesn't. I can't relate with it at all. It's not very SEAL-like. SEALs don't act that way.
What does that mean? Like SEALs all act the same. SEALs fight each other more than any other group of people I've ever seen. I went down a rabbit hole after this. There's like a million YouTube videos of one SEAL exposing another SEAL for not being SEAL-y enough. It's always like, this isn't something SEALs do. And then the other guy's like, yeah, it is. This is something a real SEAL would do. And like, no, you're not. You're not a real SEAL. A real SEAL goes, or. Sorry, I had to make that joke. It was right there.
And so that's his own brand. I see some of his videos. He doesn't really talk about SEAL stuff. No. Obviously, the book has a picture of him in uniform. So it's like I just don't have much of an opinion because it seems to me like a totally different brand. That's but that is clearly boosted by the trident on his chest.
Yes, well, I mean that's the same thing that I've heard is that, you know, his thing was being the toughest guy in training, right? To be the
well, yeah, but see, that would really make a SEAL mad to hear that because it's like, what does that mean to be the toughest guy in training? You know, to me, it's not tough to run a lot. You know, I'm not trying to diminish it. It's a different brand.
Yeah.
To me, it's tough. The guy gets shot 28 times and walks away from it. That's tough.
So he admits that his whole SEAL
the guy gets
brand, first of all. He admits that it's just a brand that he uses to sell himself as a politician. Then he says it's not tough to run ultra marathons. It's tough to get shot 28 times because, you know, he wants to encourage young kids to join the U.S. military and go overseas and fight for oil. That's his job as an imperialist. So the only thing that he can glorify in his mind is military service. What he did is tough. And also, somebody who gets shot 28 times and lives isn't tough. They're just lucky that the bullets didn't hit any vital organs. But regardless, a lot of people jumped down his throat for that and said it was stupid, including this guy, this war criminal, Eddie Gallagher, who took a picture with a dead
hey, what's up, everybody?
In Iraq, and then was persecuted for it, but eventually was acquitted because it turned out that it was his superior who actually killed the ISIS soldier, and I guess this guy just wanted to take a picture with it. So he hung up his American flag, he got his machine gun out and put it in the background, and decided to make a video about Dan Crenshaw. But we don't have to watch this guy's whole video because he's kind of a scumbag and I don't want to give him too much attention. But his thing was Dan Crenshaw, to his face and to his brother's face, was saying that he was fighting for him and trying to get him out, trying to get him acquitted. When And then he would later find out that Dan Crenshaw was pushing for him to be locked up for life behind the scenes, and had just been lying to him and his brother, and wanted to use that as a way to boost his own political career. So on the right, you have people who are like, there are people who like are in the Joe Rogan sphere, who just like don't like liberals, right? Or they like to exercise and lift weights, and they think that makes them right wing. They think that makes them a Republican or a libertarian or whatever, because they watch Joe Rogan and they don't follow politics very closely. There's people like that who probably follow and watch along with David Goggins, right? And there's a lot of people like that who also think that they support Dan Crenshaw or Ron DeSantis, these right-wing politicians. And we have to show them that these politicians are liars. They are deceivers. They're not tough. They're not cool guys. They wouldn't be a fun guy to have a beer with, right? They are imperialists who have been part of the American political establishment for years. And there's no difference between a Dan Crenshaw and a Hillary Clinton just because Dan Crenshaw has an eye patch and he pretends to be a tough guy, right? It's all bravado. That's an aesthetic that's like Dan Crenshaw admitted in that video. That's his brand that he's pushing, right? I'm a SEAL. I'm a tough guy. Look at my eye patch. I lost my eye in war. Vote for me. I'm cool. I'm like Joe Rogan. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see the dynamics on the right. And it reminded me of this video with Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan, two comedians. Shane Gillis is a comedian who's getting really popular. He did a video saying that he took mushrooms once in another country and almost became a communist, because he realized, like, why does America have all these countries' wealth?
Anytime I go to another,
was a funny bit, but he kind of got into it with Joe Rogan about Ron DeSantis here, and I thought this back and forth was interesting too, and goes along with what we were just talking about.
Fucked up during COVID. Like if COVID didn't happen, Gavin Newsom was fast tracked to be the president. But Gavin Newsom's like DeSantis, where I'm like, once people hear him talk, you're gonna go, oh, like Gavin Newsom's just doing Obama. But he's doing Obama. The difference is people don't like Gavin Newsom in his own state. They just take him over a Republican. Yeah. And people love DeSantis.
See, Joe starts to get a little defensive. I think he likes DeSantis. People love him, actually. Yeah, man. Ben Shapiro's a really nice guy, man. You just gotta talk to him. Joe's such a meathead sometimes.
People love DeSantis in Florida. They get, but there are people that love him. Like he has fans. I know, but love him. I don't think Gavin Newsom has a lot of fans. Here's what I think about DeSantis. I think, yeah, I hear you for sure.
And I think that's accurate too. I think there are a lot of people who like DeSantis, but I think what Shane Gillis is saying here is so 100% spot on about DeSantis, the DeSantis deception.
And we got busted wearing no mask in a restaurant when everyone's supposed to be masked. And I think with DeSantis, I don't know enough about him. I think people love the idea of DeSantis, where they're like, Florida fucking said, fuck COVID. We're going to keep, they did their thing. So they love the idea of DeSantis, but nobody's ever heard him talk. Nobody's ever seen him talk. And when you do, you go, oh, fuck, this guy's a dork. They go, God damn it. This is
who literally supervised torture at Guantanamo Bay, which just came out. Right? These guys like Crenshaw and DeSantis, they give this populist facade, but I don't think it's going to last. I don't think they're as good at it as someone like Trump even. And I think the American people are going to catch on when they hear them talk, because they're going to realize they're just politicians. They're literally just selling a brand. They're liars. They'll say whatever they have to further the interests of capital and their capitalist donors. Right? So there are a bunch of people on the left who think on the right, who think Dan Crenshaw is awesome. He's like Joe Rogan, and Hillary Clinton's evil and she's the devil. Right? And there's certain people that can be won over who think this way, who we can steer in the right direction and be like, no, DeSantis is deceiving you. Donald Trump is deceiving you. Dan Crenshaw is deceiving you. These guys are liars. They are Hillary Clinton just selling a different brand, right? They found another lane for them to take to where they can have a political career and make a whole bunch of money not really doing shit for their whole life.
Another dork.
I've seen him talk a bunch of times.
I know. I'm just talking about the general public. I think when they see him talk right now, I'm sure he's doing fine in approval, but nobody's seen him. And when he talks, especially if he starts trying to talk shit back and forth with Trump,
yeah, that's gonna get ugly.
It's gonna split that. It's gonna be fun, dude. Meatball Ron. Meatball Ron.
Oh my God. So exciting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. The spectacle will be fun.
The spectacle will be fun, but then it's also the same prospect every time. I never feel good about who's going to be the president. It's always like, okay.
Yeah.
It's never like anybody that really is coming along.
Yeah, I just thought the part about DeSantis was interesting from these guys, because they have a lot of right-wingers or a lot of Republicans who follow their show. And like I said, they're these Republicans who think Dan Crenshaw is cool, Hillary Clinton's evil. When all of these people are evil, like Cobra Commander said, Ron DeSantis is funneling money into Cuba to try and overthrow their government. And he should be tried for international terrorism, which is hilarious because the U.S. has called Cuba a terrorist state, hilariously. So yeah, little election analysis for you. We'll start dipping our toes into that. As the 2020 election gets closer, follow who the main candidates are and what I think the mood of the country is, or the different groups of voters. 3Infinity, definitely hit me up. Can you email us at midwesternmarks@gmail.com? That would be the best way to reach us about being a video editor. We absolutely need that. I was thinking that before I started the stream, that I need a video editor so bad, because I just don't have the time right now to take our videos off Twitch and make them into clips. I would love for you to reach out. You sent us an email? Shoot, I don't know why I didn't see it. You can also, do you have a Discord? If you send me your Discord name, I'll add you right now. Or I'll at least write down so I can add you after the stream. Because I've actually been using Discord. Join the Discord chat, by the way, everyone. It's fun. It is quite fun. So when are we starting? ASAP. Actually, I'll just check my email, 3Infinity. Don't worry about it. Let me make myself a note. Check. I'm writing in big letters. Email. 3Infinity sign. Edit. All right. I shall not forget. Liking the hat today, Eddie. Thank you. Thank you. But did you like the stream? That was a good one. Gosh, my roommate burps so loud it sounds like an earthquake. Did you guys hear that? It shouldn't be able to come out of a human being. Holy number. Oh, sweet. You do have a Discord. I got you. I definitely will be hitting you up because we need help with that specifically. That sounded like a fake. No, that's real. He actually, like, all the time. He does that all the time, like 5 times a day. I know it sounds fake. He calls it the baby dragon. I thought it was fake at first too when I first met him 6 years ago. I was like, that can't be a real burp. It's real. I'll have to have him come do it on stream now. That was an epic burp. I wish he could see this. He would be so proud. Guy! I'll tell him after the stream. This is the second stream in a row I've tried to get one of my roommates in here. Discord link doesn't seem to work. Oh. Sorry, Donovan. Where did you try and do it at the link? Or at the Did you try to do it at the link tree? Is that how you tried to get on Discord? Oh, why did my camera turn off? Oh no, it just told me that. In the link tree? Okay. Let me make another note for myself to update that. Sorry about that. All right. Pause on the Discord then. I will update the link tree after this. All right. So now we've covered Dan Crenshaw and one of our Joe Rogan clips. This is the Joe Rogan clip I really wanted to watch. Well, first, let me say that if you're into video games and if you're into Final Fantasy, make sure to follow our gaming channel, Eddie Liger Smith Gaming. We're at 69 subscribers, so I'm really sad that we have to ruin that. I wish we could stay at 69 forever, but this is where we upload gaming videos and do live streams. We also stream them on twitch.tv/MidwesternMarks. So those are exclusive to Twitch, and then this YouTube channel, they don't go on the Midwestern Marks YouTube, which stays strictly news, politics, and theory, all the serious stuff. But these are more chilled, more relaxed. You can come hang out, ask questions. There are less people in the chat, so you have more of an opportunity to actually have me see your question and answer it. So yeah, all that. What's your email again? midwesternmarks@gmail.com. Pretty simple. There's a way to create a permalink for Discord. Okay, I'll look into it. I thought I already did that, but we all wish you could stay at 69 forever. Me too. For those who feel a segment is undeserved, I'd argue they should bring those people into the spotlight themselves, using whatever format suits them best. The more, the merrier. Underserved. And bring those people in the spotlight themselves, using whatever format suits them best. The more, the merrier, for sure.
I feel like everyone is.
All right. Let's listen to Joe Rogan talk about how the empire and capitalism is failing.
Is a 3-bev person now, like at all times. Like it used to just be like water, juice, coffee. Now it's like, oh, I got this Black Rifle, I got the CB, I got water.
We're greedy. Our empire's falling. I want coffee, a glass of wine, and a bottle of water. Let's go.
Squeeze juice.
Whatever I want. I'm gonna be here for a while. I want different things to try.
Yeah.
We're a failing empire.
The empire's definitely failed. Like if you watch at all levels, like especially what's really funny with the Fed thing now is that like they want to fight inflation, but then they just threw billions of dollars back into the market, and I'm like, inflation's going to go crazy.
I don't see a way where this levels out and becomes something that we can all say is like a reasonable system.
No,
that's what scares the shit out of me.
I think all the pricing's out of whack. It's going to stay out of whack because the economy just wants to keep going and it won't stop.
Yeah, that's what's wild about growth, like constant, never-ending growth, just bigger, bigger. It's kind of wild that all corporations kind of operate on that mentality, right? Like if you're a shareholder for whatever company it is, like a really successful company like Apple, you want them to do better next quarter. Like, hey, you guys should be doing better. Like you have to do better. Like this company's worth like fucking $8 trillion. We're like, let's come on, guys. It's quarter. I need these fucking prices to come up.
Yeah,
people are playing this weird gambling game with your value and your popularity. It's very strange that we all think that everything should keep growing and grow forever.
It's just, I think, human self-interest and human nature to like want to compete and want to grow and want to get better. But
if it's human nature to want to compete and want to grow, then we don't need the capitalist market system to do it. Then humans can grow and develop without the capitalist market system. But we don't need to listen to this human nature argument. However, very interesting that even Joe Rogan realizes at this point that the empire is failing. Right? He might have acknowledged 10 years ago that we're an empire and then made some joke about Hillary Clinton. But I don't know if he would have said that the empire is failing, that things are collapsing and Americans are just, obsessed with consumerism and that's all we have. And they're like, oh, we have freedom. We got 20 kinds of Cheerios. Not really when your entire country's collapsing and you're run by oligarchs and people are downtrodden economically, right? What kind of freedom is there for somebody who's got a long-term illness, but they can't afford healthcare? Right? And that's the future that younger generations are looking at, and which is why a lot of them are becoming more revolutionarily minded. But the stage that capitalist imperialism is at, pretty much everyone realizes it can't last. And you see, like, even Joe Rogan there can make the connection between capitalism and imperialism, right? We always say this: imperialism isn't just a war. Imperialism isn't just an action that the US takes or that the IMF or the World Bank do. Imperialism is the stage of capitalism. It's the economic system that we live under, where the ruling class is reliant on trapping in debt and super exploiting countries in the global south, and just pacifying our population with consumerism, giving us a bunch of different kinds of Cheerios and a whole bunch of different consumer goods that are marketed to us and we're beat over the head with constantly with advertising, in order to tell us that we have freedom and that we can't rise up and that we're selfish if we want our system to be any better. 60,000 bridges are collapsing under the homeless people beneath them. Exactly. As more and more of your tax dollars are literally, Joe Biden is sucking your tax dollars out of your paycheck with a vacuum and then turning around and shooting them with a money gun right to Ukraine. To the point where it's undeniable anymore. So all it's going to take is revolutionary education, ideological training for the workers that gets them into a place where they know how to rise up, where they can organize against this crumbling empire and build something better out of the ashes. And consumerism of ideas. The media is a big market bubble. True. True that. I'll bury Captain Crunch. Now sit on the couch and don't rebel. Isn't that one of the cereals that they have on Halloween? I hope we don't lose those under socialism, honestly. Those are good. I had one story. Oh, we already covered the meta thing, actually. There's a really good interview from Lula recently, De Silva. Actually, Lula went to China, and I think everybody saw that. But he gave a really good interview talking about why. And they were like, why did you go to China? And he's like, Brazil is looking for countries who want peace, who are interested in peace. And the United States is not interested in peace. China's interested in peace. You know, even or he mentions a bunch of countries like Iran, and a handful of others. He might even lump Russia in there. He's like, these countries want peace. They're striving for peace, even though, you know, they recognize we don't have it right now. And that's who Brazil is interested in talking to, because we want peace. That's what the Brazilians want. Yo, what's up? I saw the whole interview. Nice. Yeah, it was a good interview, wasn't it? Sent you an email. Hope you see it. I will, 3 Infinity. I promise. I made myself a note. Promise. Yeah. Rogan millionaire loving degrowth and overpopulation BS in his 40-acre mansion. Does he talk about overpopulation? Hope not. They are so close yet so far. True. They also have money. Shane Gillis and Joe Rogan. Right? So I'm less saying that we're going to convince these people. That's Eddie Huang. Oh, gotcha. He was affiliated with Vice and got a TV show. Okay. I'm less saying, you know, we're going to convince that guy, Eddie Huang, and then Joe Rogan to be communists or socialists. But there's a whole bunch of working class people who watch Joe Rogan, who, like I said, are kind of in that, have that political attitude of, you know, I think I'm a Republican because I don't like liberals and, you know, I like to watch Joe Rogan. So therefore I must be a conservative. And they think Dan Crenshaw is cooler than Hillary Clinton. And there's a lot of working people like that who can be won over, a lot of young working people especially. He does. Malthusian scarcity. That sucks. Human nature is determined on the type of society that we all live in. Capitalist society, it's human nature to be greedy and competitive. I counter that within socialism and eventually communist society, it's human nature to be selfless and strive to be more cooperative, not only to better your own life, but the lives of those in the community. Nope, that is on the mark, Jacob. You nailed it. Yeah, human nature is malleable. It can change. We have interests that are determined by our material conditions and our place within the economy and how we can get the things that we need to survive. And under capitalism, the more selfish and greedy and self-centered that you are, the better you're going to do, the more you're going to prosper. So it encourages that part of human nature, selfishness, whereas socialism would encourage the other part of human nature, and eventual communism especially would encourage the communal parts of human nature that we know exist, the empathetic parts. Honestly, as an American considering defecting at this moment, do you think it's worth continuing my life here? Absolutely. Yeah, our mission is here. Our mission is in the States, in the heart of the empire. We need you to help us fight the empire. All right, that's probably where I'm going to end the stream today. We will do a gaming stream later, I'm pretty sure. I also have to go to wrestling practice. So we'll see how much energy I have. But I have a video about North Korea, but I think I'll save it for next time when I have more energy. I do want to shout out our $10 Patreon supporters on patreon.com/MidwesternMarx. Because like I said, you get the Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism is going to be made available to Patreons this week. Carlos's new amazing book over ebook. So you'll get that and the Journal of American Socialist Studies, like a $15 value. And I'll read off your name on the streams. Thank you to our producers, A. Coco, Amazaline, Andrew Tibbetts, Anna Williams, Ariel, A.O. Hillary, Benjamin Calvette, Brady, Bryce Raffa, Burton Reynolds, Cass, Sellerdorp, Christian Cook, Christopher Stombaugh, CJ, Cody, David Burney, David Rock, Debbie Hode, DRRD, Elliot Cook, Gabe Glazer, Galactic Beyond, Gilly Trice, Glenn Goldman, Hobie Huskell, Jorge Hacon, Clepe Norman, Ian Snyder, Araj Rafiq, Isaac Cohen, Jack Kelleher, Jeremy Bishop, Johnny.it, Joseph Hofer, Hofer, Joseph Machado, Julie P67, Kevin Durham Sr., Christopher Bussell, Loaf of Kropotkin, Lucas Meadows, Marvin Roman, Mashed Answers, Max Maddox, Naomi, Philip Gendral, Pranav Simha, Semi-Autonomous, Silas James, SJ Mage, loading, The JB, Tiva, Tom Smith, Uncle Joey, who's given 900 lifetime. Holy crap. Vanguard Party Animal, Victoria R, Vince Barbosa, Wit, Xenon Tuning, aka Moon Factor, Zachary Quesenberry, and that's it. Thank you all for your continued support. Much love. Sorry, we'll do the DPRK video next time. And we'll do Jacob's Western historian video that keeps getting taken down. Solidarity, everyone. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you very much. It's tuning like 2.9. Oh, Xenon 2.9. Sorry, Moon Factor. I got you from now on. Thank you for all the support.